The 2021 ARCA Menards Series East season has officially kicked off with yet another exciting finish at the new Smyrna Speedway amid drama the likes we have not seen in a long time in the ARCA Menards series. So let's get right into it and talk about this. Hello and welcome. As always, I'm your host Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me today on the ARCA Menards series Rewind show. If this is your first time here, go down below, hit that subscribe button for me. It is free to do. The quicker we get to 1,000 subscribers, the quicker YouTube will let us do mobile live streaming, which will greatly improve both the quality and quantity of coverage we're able to give you from the track this season for the ARCA Menards series and beyond. So let's get into this one. The Jeep Beach 175 from the new Smyrna Speedway. Supposed to be 175 laps. We went a little ways into overtime in this one. Like I mentioned, drama is an understatement for this race. The highs, the lows, the excitement of a finish that quite possibly is the best finish in the history of the ARCA Menards series, overshadowed by quite possibly, honestly, some of the worst officiating I think I've ever seen in a race. Let's start off with the caution report from this race. We went green for the first 89 laps in this race before we had the scheduled break at lap number 89. So we had a good long green flag run to start this race. Really good racing the first part of the race. Parker Retzlaff got out to a really big lead before being tracked back down by Taylor Gray late in that run. But this break is where this race started to kind of go off the rails. Taylor Gray and Joey East were the top two. The two DGR cars were the top two heading into this break. What we have become accustomed to with these breaks since they were implemented after the COVID break in the 2020 season is the teams get a 5-minute break for pit stops in the middle of this caution. As long as you get your pit stop done within those 5 minutes, you are allowed to come back out, rejoin the field in the spot that you entered the caution with. And I even made the comment on the watch party for this race how I wasn't sure what was happening with the lineup as we came out of this break, because as I mentioned, Taylor Gray and Joey East were the top two heading into this break. So they should have been the top two coming out of this break. No, they were 4th and 5th. Sammy Smith, Mason Diaz, and Jack Wood were the top three. Where did they come from? Why are they the top three? Well, it turns out what happened was they pitted a lap earlier than everyone else when the pits were still closed. Now, I'm not sure. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that these three teams didn't know the pits were closed and they thought we were just doing regular pit stops, because that's essentially what seems to have happened here. They came down on the second lap of the caution, did regular pit stops, came back out and joined the field. The rest of the field came down and did their pit stops on the third lap of the caution. Well, they had their 5-minute clock, but since these three cars had already made their pit stops, they stayed with the pace car, ended up basically treated as cars that didn't make a pit stop during that caution, so they became the top three. Okay, so ARCA didn't penalize them. That's obviously a missed call. Okay, fine. You take your lumps and you go on about things. ARCA didn't make a call here, which was wrong. I totally agree. These three cars should have been penalized, sent to the back of the field, back of the lead lap, whatever the penalty for this is, it should have happened. But it didn't, and we can't change that at this point, or so it seems. We go back racing with Sammy Smith the leader. Sammy Smith leads all the way up until 2 cautions from now. The first one happens at lap 127. Jack Wood spins into turn 1 after contact with Joey East off of turn 4. East had gotten a little bit squirrely off of turn 4. His right rear quarter panel got into the left rear tire of Jack Wood. This immediately cut down Jack Wood's left rear. Wood spins into turn 1 and backs it into the wall. That would be the end of the day for Jack Wood. Caution at lap 165. 10 laps to go. There was supposedly debris in turn 4. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't debris in turn 4, but the TV camera followed the guy that was out on the little golf cart, dune buggy thing, whatever it was supposed to be, all the way through turns 3 and 4 and onto the front stretch. He never stopped to get out to pick up any debris, nothing. So I'm not saying there wasn't debris, but as far as I saw, nobody ever got out and picked up any debris. Not saying it wasn't there, just saying that didn't look like anybody picked up any debris. So while we're under this caution, it starts to rain. Very small cell of rain. moves over the track. We run 5 laps under caution. They finally pull him down pit road, red flag the race, and wait for the shower to pass over. Then they get the jet dryers out to try and dry the track. Everything's cool up through this point. Now, because there's 5 laps left when they finally pull it down pit road, you got to figure, okay, we're not going back green until at the very least 3 laps to go, and it's probably going to be overtime by the time we go back green after this. So we're going to have about 2 to 3 laps left in this race. Great short track shootout to the end of this race. As we come off of pit road after this red flag, Sammy Smith is not rolling with the rest of the field. And at first I'm thinking, oh no, his car didn't crank. He's got issues. Well, he's got issues, but it's not because the car won't crank. It's because ARCA finally decided to enforce the penalty from 80 laps ago. What? No! That happened 80 laps ago and you didn't call it. You can't call it now. With 2 laps to go? Who's making the calls in the tower? I'm sorry. Okay. I know there are some ARCA higher-ups that watch this show. Please listen to me when I tell you this kind of thing hurts your credibility immensely. I'm not saying Sammy Smith shouldn't have been penalized for what happened under the lap 88 caution. But if you're going to penalize him under that caution. Once that caution is done, you lose your ability to penalize him. You can't penalize him after that. Otherwise, you look like you're playing favorites. And that's exactly what this looks like. I don't throw around that word very often. I really try to give the benefit of the doubt. And I really don't believe that's what was happening here. I really believe the ARCA officials truly believe they were doing the right thing with this. But I'm going to be honest, you weren't. Calling that penalty when you did, that was not the right way to do this. That hurts your credibility immensely. And I don't know how we look at the ARCA officials as credible for the rest of the season after this. I really don't. Now, on top of this, remember how there were 3 cars that stayed out, or that ended up in the front of the field during that lap 88 caution. There was Sammy Smith, Mason Diaz, and Jack Wood. Jack Wood is irrelevant at this point because he has crashed. Mason Diaz, though, is still in the race and was still running second at this point. Mason Diaz did not get penalized. Only Sammy Smith got penalized. Why? ARCA, we need answers to this. None of this makes any sense. None of this looks good on you. And I'm sorry, I try to be as positive as I possibly can be with all of this all the time. But I can't with this. I just can't. There is no positive way to look at this. Everything about this call was wrong. If you're going to do it on the lap 88 caution. Or don't do it at all. Because when you do it with 2 laps to go, you just screwed over Sammy Smith's race. Now granted, because there was 1 more caution, he got a chance to get back into this. But under normal circumstances, you've just screwed over Sammy Smith's race because you screwed up. Yes, he screwed up first. His team screwed up first. But you screwed up by not making that call when you should have. And then you screwed him over. He did get 1 more shot at this because on the restart into overtime, we ran about 10 laps at slightly faster than caution speed under this caution to try and get heat back into the racetrack with the cars making circles. We finally went back to green on lap 182 and immediately went back to caution as we went down into turn 1. Mason Diaz, Taylor Gray were the front row at this point. They make contact down into turn 1. Diaz can't hold on to it. He spins around in 1 and 2. Caution's back out. So we're going to go to a second overtime now. The leader on this restart is Taylor Gray. Joey East restarted second. Sammy Smith was back up to third at this point. So Sammy Smith was in striking distance at this point. And that was only because that second caution into a second overtime had happened. If that didn't happen, it was slim to none that Sammy Smith was ever getting back into this. But he had a shot at this point. We get clean through 1 and 2 on this second overtime. We make it all the way past the white flag, down the backstretch. 3 cars cars, all a car length apart. Taylor Gray the leader, Sammy Smith second, Max Gutierrez in the 30 for Rhett Jones Racing has made it up third. All of them have about a car length of separation. Down into turn 3, Sammy Smith sends it all the way into the back bumper of Taylor Gray, shoots him up the track. They're side by side off of turn 4, beating and banging. All of a sudden, here comes Max Gutierrez on the inside. He slides it up into these two, 3 wide, leaning on each other across the line, photo finish. Max Gutierrez wins it by a fender for his first career ARCA Menards Series East victory. A fantastic finish, overshadowed by terrible officiating. Like I said at the beginning, one of the best finishes I've ever seen in all of NASCAR. Quite possibly the best ARCA finish I've ever seen. But there's so much looming over this race that it almost overshadows it. So let's take a look at your results for this race. Max Gutierrez, of course, is your winner. Sammy Smith ended up in second with Taylor Gray in third. Again, they were 3 wide, leaning on each other across the line. A fantastic finish. Mason Diaz came home in the 4th position. He made his way back up to that spot after that spin that caused the second overtime. So a great rebound for Mason Diaz. Probably should have been a better finish than that, but good finish nonetheless for that 74 team in his first race out for Visconti. And Joey East rounded out the top 5 in his first East start and first race for David Gilliland Racing. Rest of your top 10, Daniel Dye came home in the 6th position. He blew a motor, hadn't even completed a lap in the first practice session, was able to get it back out, the last car to qualify for this race, and ran a pretty strong race. Never led, but ran a pretty competitive race and ended up in the 6th position. Colt Hensley, a very strong performance on the lead lap in the Jet Motorsports 09 car, came home in 7th. Brandon Oakley also on the lead lap. He came home in the 8th position. Parker Retzlaff ended up 2 laps down after leading a lot of the race early, finished 9th, and Willie Mullins came home with a top 10 finish in the 10th position. Rest of the field, 11th through 15th, Rajah Caruth got some damage early in the race and ended up having to come down and fix that. Ended up 10 laps off the pace by the end of it. Soldiered on throughout the race to try and pick up some points as he is running the full season for Rev Racing this year. Did come home in the 11th position. Jack Wood landed in 13th after his crash. Carson Quapple showed some speed both practice qualifying and early in the race, but unfortunately out at lap 120 with ignition issues. Dick Doheny shotgun on the field in the 15th position out on lap number 4. So that's your results from the Jeep Beach 175. Working on a Max Gutierrez interview, trying to talk to him about that first career victory. Keep an eye out for that in the next day or so here on RNN. Make sure you're subscribed and you got your notifications turned on so you know exactly when we have that interview. Let's go ahead and take a look at your points very quickly here. Obviously, not a lot to look at here because it's one race in, so we're just going to flash it up here real quickly. Of course, Max Gutierrez is going to be your points leader with Sammy Smith and Taylor Gray 2nd and 3rd. Although we do have 8 or 9 full-time East Series drivers this year, so quite possibly we could have a decent championship battle in the East Series this year shaping up. And a lot of those drivers ran really well in New Smyrna, so we could have a good championship battle this year. I just hope that going forward the races end up getting called better than what this one did. I try to stay positive, I really do, but this one I just couldn't. This race was... The sad thing is, this was a great race. You take out the bad officiating, this was a great race. Unfortunately, ARCA kind of got in its own way in this one, and I hope, like I said, I know some folks at ARCA watch this show a lot, and I do appreciate that. I just hope you all understand what happened in this race and how to go about it better in the future. Because at the end of the day, we all want great racing from the ARCA Menards series. We all love the ARCA Menards series. But it's things like this that sometimes make it a little hard to love. I guess we'll put it that way. So that's all I'm going to say on that for tonight. So thanks for joining me tonight for this ARCA Rewind show. I really appreciate it. Lots of stuff coming up this week. Racing Christian Eckes on our iRacing Tuesday stream this week. It will be on Wednesday this week instead of Tuesday. Trying not to compete with the Clash on Tuesday night. I figure most of you would rather watch the Clash than watch Christian and I race on iRacing, or I really just didn't want to give you the decision to make there. So moving it to Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. That'll be a lot of fun. NASCAR Heat Stream, of course, getting bumped back to Thursday if iRacing is on Wednesday. And then the ARCA Menards Series season opener on Saturday at the Daytona International Speedway. Always a fun one. Big car count for this one. I believe there's 35 cars on the entry list, if I remember correctly. So pretty big field as usual for this race. Should have a fantastic race on Saturday. Of course, there'll be a watch party and a rewind show for that. So make sure you come on out and hang out with us for that one. Appreciate everybody that came and hang out today on the rewind show. Both those of you that are usually here and those of you that just found the channel today from the watch party, really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you again on Saturday. But as usual, we're going to thank our Patreon supporter, Regional Manager William Holmes. Thank you, as always, for your support. It is greatly appreciated, as always. If you would like to be a patron of R&N, the link is down below in the description, patreon.com/racingnewsnow. But I believe that's going to do it for this one. So, as always, this has been the ARCA Menards Series Rewind Show. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.